the picks for week 7 against the spread. Now we're going to let John take the wheel as he gives us his starts and sits for fantasy football for week 7. So the wheel is now yours, my friend.
All right. So the starts and sits for week 7. I say this every week, but I'm going to keep saying it. I'm not going to tell you to start Derrick Henry. I'm not going to tell you to sit Derrick Henry. All the obvious guys, they're obvious for a reason. So that being said, let's get into the starts at quarterback. We talked about this guy and the revenge game that this could be. At this point, you might consider him an obvious candidate, but I think in most of the rankings that I've still seen, he's borderline top 10 fantasy QB in people's eyes, and that's Matthew Stafford. They're playing the Lions. They've been one of the most fantasy friendly defenses this year. Not very good against the pass. And as I said, I think that this is a revenge game for both him and Sean McVay. And so I'm expecting big things out of this Rams offense and Matthew Stafford specifically. Wouldn't be surprised if this is like a 4-touchdown sort of performance for him against his former team, the Detroit Lions. The next QB, Matt Ryan, playing the Dolphins. Dolphins just really haven't been able to stop a lot of people. They're just coming off a tough game where they lost to Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars. Almost put Tua Tagovailoa in here as well because both these teams have bad defenses. Both were on our waiver wire pickups this week, streaming options. I myself am starting Matt Ryan in one of my leagues because I have Justin Herbert on a bye. So, Matt Ryan, I think he could have success against this Dolphins team that is sort of still just trying to figure out who they are this year. Next at running back, these are a little more, these are some weird options because they're not actually technically starters on their teams, but that is Cordero Patterson, first off from the Falcons. He's just been such a unique player to where he's not necessarily a starter, but he's sort of filling in not a Taysom Hill type of role, but a very unique role to where he's involved in the backfield. He's involved in receiving. I mean, he just gets involved in a lot of different ways. And so I think Cordero Patterson, they're going to try to use him against the Dolphins, be creative with him, get involved because they do lack playmakers. And he's definitely a key one, when they can use him out of the backfield. The next one is running back James Conner from the Cardinals. Once again, felt a little weird because he's not technically a starter, but they're playing the Texans. The Texans have been one of the most fantasy-friendly defenses for running backs. I think they're 31st in the league against the run. Just everybody has success against them. And although Chase Edmonds is very good, Conner has proven that he's the guy when it comes to 15 or so carries on the ground, and he's the guy inside the goal line. I think they're going to get some goal line opportunities here. Would not be shocked if James Conner punches in one or two of those. So James Conner, he's a start this week. At wide receiver, first off, Sterling Shepard from the Giants. And this is just a pure volume sort of a pick. They don't really have anybody else. Kadarius Toney, he looks like he's not going to be playing. I think he was out of practice today. Evan Ingram, even in the midst of all these injuries, still hasn't really gotten involved that much. And then, as we've talked about, Kenny Golladay, Darius Slayton not playing. And so even if he doesn't have the most success in this game, he's going to have ample opportunity to do so. And I think opportunity is what you're looking for. Targets, volume, that's what you want in fantasy if you're in a tough spot, especially with all the bye weeks that are going on this week with Keenan Allen, CeeDee Lamb, Stephon Diggs, a lot of big-time receivers that are not playing in this week. Sterling Shepard could be a solid fill-in. Next, and this one might be a little risky, but I'm going off the talent, and that's Allen Robinson. I know that he has just not performed well at all this year. In full PPR, he only has 1 week with double-digit points. But the only way that you're going to beat the Buccaneers is through the air. You're not going to beat them in the run. And so I think, once again, opportunity is going to be there. I think there's going to be some one-on-one matchups down the field for him. And I'm expecting him with the talent that he has to win some of those. He's one of the most targeted receivers in the red zone that doesn't have a touchdown. He might have had a touchdown recently. I can't remember. But he's just – it's not really working out. And I think that this week could be the week where it does because, once again, that's the only way you're going to be able to compete against this Buccaneers defense. And although we're not big on Matt Nagy and that coaching staff, I don't even think they're dumb enough to try and run the ball consistently against Tampa Bay. So Allen Robinson, once again, should get a lot of volume. Next, Tyler Boyd from the Cincinnati Bengals. I talked about this earlier with Joe Burrow, but he is very good against the blitz, and we know the Ravens are a very blitz-heavy team. We have seen them show off, times where they don't do it a lot, specifically against Kansas City. They played a style where they just really sat back and forced Patrick Mahomes to beat them underneath. Maybe they'll do that for Joe Burrow, but I don't think that, this defense and their coaching staff, I don't think they have enough respect for Joe Burrow at this point in his career to do that yet. So I think they're going to send the blitz, and Joe has been very good against it. And who better than his slot receiver, Tyler Boyd, to be the first read, the first option, because he can just do a quick slant, something inside to get open. Boom, there you go. I don't think this is going to be a game where they're going to have plenty of time for Jamar Chase to be getting open deep unless their offensive line can hold up. But in a blitz-heavy scheme, that's going to be tough to ask for. So Tyler Boyd, I think he's a solid option to start this week. And a tight end, I'm not going to go too deep in this one. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Ricky Seals-Jones, in the absence of Logan Thomas, he has been a solid starter. He's a tight end one. So it's a position that lacks depth, and he's just been very good. So Ricky Seals-Jones, that's the tight end I would start. Aaron, you got any thoughts on any of these starters?
Like I said, as a Ricky Seals-Jones owner last week, for sure, I know I had him. Had a touchdown. He's a former wide receiver, too. And kind of like we felt last week, I feel like this Packers team is going to get ahead early, probably. Or just, it's going to be, Washington's going to have to, throw the ball and move the ball. And he's, and especially not many other options. Dammy Brown, my guy, has been in and out. Curtis Samuel's been in and out. So really, it's only been as reliable pass options, him and, and then McLaurin. Obviously, McLaurin be one. And then from there, it's like McKissick maybe and Gibson if he isn't on a snap count. So yeah, I fully endorse the Ricky Seals-Jones again for another week. Does get my stamp of approval. I'm trying to think. And then, yeah, I mean, obviously you mentioned Matt Stafford, I think, right?
Yep, Matt Stafford.
At this point, yeah, Matt Stafford, side note, I wanted him in my Dynasty League. Not Dynasty, my 2-quarterback league. Didn't get him. I was really upset about that because it was one of those where I maybe should have, like right now, peel back the curtain, probably should have gotten him instead of where I got Odell, which is like 6th, 7th round. But I was focusing on skill positions at that point. So, unfortunate.
Yeah, I'm in a 1 QB league, and I had Dak and Matthew Stafford. Ended up trading Stafford for Javonte Williams just because I can't start both.
Yeah.
And both are very good quarterbacks. Anyway, moving on to the sits this week. This one was a little bit tougher because, once again, a lot of the big offenses, the Bills, the Vikings, the Cowboys, the Chargers, even the Steelers, like a lot of these teams are on bye week this week. And so some teams that maybe typically their options would be falling to the sits category, you can't just because of all the buys that we're going to have to deal with. And so we're going to have to get a little more into the weeds this week. First off, at quarterback, Jimmy Garoppolo for the 49ers. He's coming off an injury. I'm not sure his status, but it looks like Trey Lance isn't going to be good to go. And I don't think they're going to want to bring out a third string. I don't even know who their third string is. So
I think
Jimmy
it's
Garoppolo, Nate Sudfeld, yeah, and so that'd be rough. And also they're playing a Colts defense who their secondary is a little bit rough, but they still have a good front seven. And with the Niners lacking their, George Kittle, Brandon Ayuk's just not really doing much. I don't know. I just don't think this is a prime opportunity for Jimmy Garoppolo to be a relevant fantasy option. I don't expect most people to be starting him, but if you're in a 2 QB league and you have a different option, I would be benching Jimmy Garoppolo this week, just because of what's going to be going on in that game. And the other quarterback this week is the guy on the other side of the ball, or the other side of that game, and that's Carson Wentz. A large reason is not because of the talent or anything about Carson Wentz, but I just think Jonathan Taylor is going to get heavily involved again this week. They've really been feeding him. He's been having success. I don't expect that to change this week. And also, this Niners defense has been surprisingly good against QBs recently. Kyler Murray did not have a very good week against them. And so I just think they're looking good when it comes to game planning specifically for opposing quarterbacks. I think their defense is starting to figure some things out. And so that combined with, once again, Jonathan Taylor looking good, I'm going to say bench Carson Wentz this week. I feel more confident about the Jimmy Garoppolo call. So if you're on a deeper league and you need Carson Wentz, this isn't, a terrible option, but I just wouldn't expect him to have a high workload in this game. At running back, we have Mr. Alex Collins from the Seattle Seahawks. He's questionable to even play this week. And I think if he does play, he could be a little bit limited, which opens the door for DJ Dallas and Rashad Penny, who just came off IR. Those two guys get involved in the game. Also, they're playing the Saints, and the Saints defense has been pretty solid against opposing running backs this year. So I'm going to say avoid Alex Collins this week just because of all the factors and the fact that Geno Smith, the quarterback, like you said, Marshawn Lattimore could match up well against DK Metcalf. We don't know what we're going to get out of Tyler Lockett. Like, I just don't know how many scoring opportunities this Seahawks team is going to be able to get. The next running back spot is Mark Ingram from the Houston Texans. Like I said, we're getting a little deeper in this week. It's just such a strange backfield, such a weirdly split three-headed monster. But even then, they don't have a whole lot of success with these three running backs. Mark Ingram, I think he's had the most success because he's the goal line guy. But they're playing the Cardinals. It's going to be a tough matchup. I don't think they're going to have a lot of opportunities to score this defense. They're fast. They can fly around. They have some solid linebacking options, and J.J. Watt has been a beast. So I'm going to say avoid pretty much the entire Houston Texans offense except for Brandon Cooks this week. That's pretty much a rule of thumb on the whole year, but definitely in this game. At wide receiver, we're going to start off with Robbie Anderson. He's just been unreliable. He's getting a lot of targets, been incredibly inefficient, just isn't able to get things going. Unfortunately, in one of my leagues, I've been forced into starting him. I actually had to drop somebody and pick him up because my entire bench is full of bye weeks and injuries. So I'm having to, but I just wouldn't be starting him in this one, just simply because he hasn't proved that he deserves to be in your starting lineups in fantasy this year. The next wide receiver, this one might be a little surprising one for some people, but it is Tyler Lockett. It seemed like Geno Smith just didn't really favor him that much last week. Maybe it's just a small sample size, a 1 week kind of thing, but it seems like the Russell Wilson Tyler Lockett connection was so beautiful, and it's not there with Geno. So I don't know. Also, I don't expect Marshawn Lattimore to necessarily follow DK Metcalf, so I think he could be on both him and Tyler Lockett throughout the game. So I would just avoid Tyler Lockett this week as well. And finally, Devonta Smith from the Philadelphia Eagles. They're playing the Raiders, and Casey Hayward specifically has been one of the highest graded corners on the year, one of the toughest corners for a wide receiver to face in fantasy. He's allowing, I think, the lowest points per route from any corner when it comes to fantasy. So Devonta Smith, I think could see a lot of Casey Hayward in this one. So I would avoid Eagles pass catchers as a whole in this game. And then finally, at tight end, Mo Alley-Cox. I just think he's touchdown dependent. So that is the starts and sits of the week. If you got questions about who to start, who to sit, any trade questions as we near the trade deadline, drop them down in the comments below. Check us out on Instagram as we post fantasy content every week.
Yep. So that will wrap it up there. A little quicker episode, like we mentioned, just because a lot of buys this week and not a lot of good games. But once again, like John mentioned, Instagram's right up there at Shut Up and Ball Pod, and our TikTok and Twitter is at Shut Up and Ball. We have a Facebook page as well, and obviously our YouTube channel. Just look it up, Shut Up and Ball. But yeah, wherever you're listening or watching, like, comment, subscribe. Let us know what we're doing, right or wrong, and we'll build off that. But once again, thank you for listening, and we will see you all next week.